Welcome to Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Diablo IV, the Vessel of Hatred DLC. I played on the Xbox Series X. It's also available, well, wherever Diablo IV is available. So to kick off the story, you find out that the church is kind of fractured, and there's the Church of Light group as well as the Burned Knights group now. The Burned Knights dudes, well, they're still part of the Church of Light, but they're a little bit extreme, and they like burning people alive, and they're kind of assholes. But then here's a bit of spoilers for Diablo IV if you haven't played Diablo IV. You've got Nayrel, who is traveling with the Soul Stone that possesses Mephisto, and well, she's trying to deal with that. And unfortunately, wherever she goes, well, it plagues the land and causes huge problems, including new monsters called the Hollow. But both of these things lead you into a new land called Nahantu, and it's this jungle biome, essentially, and they definitely have a very different outlook. Overall, I gotta say, I really enjoyed the story, and it definitely fit with the vibes of Diablo IV. It's a good DLC follow-up in that it just kind of really does flow very well. Except for the Burned Knights thing, I think that could have played out cooler, and maybe it will come back later, but it really doesn't run its course the way you would want it to, and it's not particularly fulfilling. It feels like something that could have had its own DLC, and maybe it will down the road, but what they do with it here is not exactly what it deserved, in my opinion. Moving on to the audio, I think the music is once again very good. It works extremely well with the game, and it keeps up with the much more serious tone that I feel that Diablo IV has gone for over, say, Diablo III. As well as then you have the voiceover work, which is also really well done in this game. I didn't have any complaints at any point in time. I think the new voices for the newer characters all worked very well, and the voice actors and actresses who came back for the pre-existing characters all did a good job. And then last but not least, once again, the sound effects. I think they all work very well within this game. They definitely fit the vibe a bit more, which I'm not going to say horror, but body horror for sure. There's some grotesqueries that were present in Diablo IV, and the sound effects once again carry over into Diablo IV Vessel of Hatred, the DLC, with that body horror and the sound effects to make it even more grotesque. But let's move on to the gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and this is an isometric action RPG, just like, Diablo IV was. And I'm going to start out with one of my biggest complaints. That's not really my biggest complaint, it's not even close. They still haven't given me the ability that I truly want for my Necromancer. It's the one from Diablo 3 where you create a corpse and it launches bone spikes at an enemy, which generally ends up creating another corpse, and you can just kind of daisy chain that together and wreck folks. Still not in Diablo 4, though they did add some new abilities for the classes, which I noticed, as well as some new upgrades on the skill trees and whatnot, because they also increased the level cap. They also made some other changes, like now there's runes that you can attach to socketed gear, and they'll do different things. I mean, they have added some minor new features. Overall, I don't think they added a ton that really changed the game, at least for me. Maybe for like a much more crazy hardcore player, there was changes that I just can't appreciate as somebody who's not crazy hardcore, and this is a much more casual experience for me. They also added the Spiritborn class, which I didn't really get into because I wanted to continue on with my Necromancer. It is a melee-focused class, but again, the nuances of the classes, there's probably something much deeper to it than somebody like me who plays this in a much more casual manner. Now, I did have quite a few glitches that did negatively impact me from a gameplay standpoint. Starting with, you get pets. Pets are awesome because they can go and collect, certain things. They won't collect gear, but they can go and collect all the money around. My pet constantly fucking disappeared whenever I was in the new zone, and I don't know why. But when I was in old zones, my pet would run around with me and be groovy. There was a weird glitch in one of the old zones, actually, where I kept taking damage from absolutely nothing. There was no enemy there to be hitting me, but I was getting hit, and that was quite frustrating. It couldn't hit me when I was moving, but if I was standing still, it was hitting me, and that was just a strange glitch. Then there was one of the later boss fights where, as a Necromancer, I have an army of the dead, and it would only let me have one of my minions, specifically one of my skeletal mages. I don't know why it wouldn't let me have the rest, and it wouldn't even let me, resurrect the rest. There's a stretch of time in the fight where, the ground you're on shrinks, and then it grows. But even when it was, full, I couldn't resurrect anyone. I couldn't bring my full army in, so that was weird, annoying, and kind of made the Necromancer in that fight kind of stupid. I mean, I still got through it because I was playing on normal mode. It reset me to normal mode as well when I started Vessel of Hatred, because I was playing on a harder difficulty. When I was doing leveling after beating the main game. Either way, that was weird and I don't understand it and I didn't like it. But by far the biggest glitch that I would have is sometimes a character would disappear. Like I was in a loading screen and it didn't load, so I had to quit out the game, and then the character wasn't where they were supposed to be, and I would leave and they wouldn't come back to it, and I would restart the game and they wouldn't come back to it. And it took me multiple times restarting the game in various forms for that character and that quest to actually reset so that I could complete the game. I was actually concerned that I wasn't going to be able to complete this DLC because of that glitch. And it happened to me on another mission earlier, but that one resolved itself rather quickly with just one reset. But either way, the fact that that happened to me multiple times is incredibly frustrating and shows that there is a dire need for patching. Otherwise, I didn't have any problems with the leveling and the regular gameplay stuff. I just had those issues. They did also introduce mercenaries, which are kind of like the companions from Diablo 3. Didn't really find them necessary, but they were an interesting addition to the idea. And one thing that is fun is kind of like in Diablo 3, the companions or the mercenaries in this, they have their own little stories when you go and recruit them, and you have like a little mission set for them. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. In the end, it didn't change the gameplay for me. Let's move on to the controls, and I don't have any complaints with the controls. They work exactly like they did in the main game, and they functioned perfectly fine for me. Then graphics and visuals, and I mean, overall, it's still a very good looking game. You have the cinematics, which Blizzard has always knocked it out of the park with cinematics. Just always been some of the best looking fucking things. Then you have your cutscenes, which those look very good as well. And then you have your regular gameplay, which is the isometric, top-down-ish kind of thing, and you're far enough away that you don't see insane details, but there's enough detail. There is plenty of detail, but the thing is, you're not really focused on it most of the time because the combat gets so hectic and there's so much shit going on, which that in and of itself is very impressive. Keeping all of that different shit going is a pretty cool concept. All the effects of your character's attacks, in my case, my minions' attacks, the enemies' attacks. The world itself just looks awesome. As I mentioned earlier, the new biome is basically a jungle, which is cool. It's definitely in juxtaposition to either the really cold mountainy areas or the desert areas in the main game. And as I also mentioned, this game really sticks with that body horror stuff. I mean, wow. And like, I really appreciate that they stuck with that thing and the grotesqueries of the main game. I appreciate that they were willing to keep that up. I did have one really weird visual glitch during one of the cutscenes where my character's hair went from like the back through their neck to the front. It was really weird looking. But otherwise, I really didn't run into visual glitches. I think it worked well. And then I guess I didn't have any real crashing. I did have that one screen where instead of going to a loading screen, it just went all black and I had to restart the entire game. So to wrap this up, I did enjoy it overall, but I feel like there's a lot of issues that need a lot of patching before I'd ever recommend anyone pick up Vessel of Hatred. And it really doesn't go any further than that. Apart from they left it open, there's definitely going to be another DLC. Okay, in the comments down below, why don't you tell me what class would you like to see in the next Diablo DLC? I don't really want a new class, I just want them to give me back the abilities that I loved from Diablo 3. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.